Hello and welcome everybody. We are back here for a new league with the list that you see on screen. I want to go ahead and apologize in advance if you can notice any difference in the sound quality or recording quality of this particular video, as I'm currently kind of in between different things in life at the moment, a little bit of traveling, and so I don't quite have all the gear that I would like in order to be able to do some recording, but regardless, I wanted to get this content out there for you guys and for myself, but mostly for you guys. And speaking of you guys, it was requested in one of my recent videos that we play a amulet list that features none other than Karn, the great creator, the great man himself, and I'm a big fan of this guy. I think that adding Karn to the deck adds a lot of complexity and a lot of fun. Of course, you can do some pretty wacky things with Karn, and that's kind of the idea today. There are some differences between this list and the list that I was playing before. I don't recall if I made a video on the channel that was playing Karn after Turntember Symbiosis was released. But regardless, we do have Turntember Symbiosis in the main board now as a 2 of. I don't think that you would really want more than 2 Turntembers, just in theory, in a Karn list, because the whole point of adding Karn is to have additional threats in the main board, specifically ones that play around Aether Gust, but in general, just to have more live top decks, and a way to make your opponent focus their resources on dealing with Karn instead of killing you, and thus the need for Turntember is a little lower, considering we do already have those additional threats. But in addition to that, I am now playing some copies of Explore, which is a card that was not in my previous Karn lists, if I'm not mistaken, and, I mean, you guys know me, I love Explore a little too much. I wish deeply, from the bottom of my heart, that we could be playing a 4th Explore, but I honestly have no clue what to cut, so if you have a suggestion, then leave it in the comments below. Perhaps we could be trimming a Grazer for the Explorer, but that would be even more detrimental to my personal well-being than trimming an Explorer, because Grazer is just the most fantastic card in Amulet. Of course, I'm memeing, but I do like Grazer quite much, and so I wouldn't really consider trimming a Grazer for an Explorer, but I suppose it is an option. Regardless, this is the list that we are playing. There is no inclusion of Pact of Negation in the main deck, which is something to note, and in the sideboard, we do have the Karn targets that I am known to play. We have the second explosives with 1 in the main, so we don't have to have that tension of boarding in explosives and not having it for Karn, but not being able to Tolario us for explosives if we don't. So obviously we don't want that little bit of nasty tension. We do have a Tormod's Crypt, we have Pithing Needle, Liquid Metal Coating, Sky Sovereign, and Wormcoil Engine, just the typicals. We also have our normal sideboard cards in Negate, Dismember, Reclamation Sage, Beast Within. It's actually come to my attention that we need to get a 15th sideboard slot in here. I believe the card that I just recently cut was a second Cavernous Souls in the sideboard, and I just don't really think that this list requires a second Cavernous Souls, so let me see if I can find something to add in that slot, and then I will see you guys in 1 second. Okay, so I do believe that I have decided that additional 15th sideboard card in our case is going to be a 3rd Engineered Explosives in the sideboard. Of course, this is going to be geared toward those Death Shadow, early aggro, such as like Prowess type strategies, where Engineered Explosives is going to be very important against humans, for example. Specifically matchups where we might even consider boarding Karn the Great Creator out. We now have additional things to be doing with our mana and our time. If we are boarding out Karns, well, we want a maximum number of explosives, and so that is kind of the idea behind that inclusion. So yeah, I have nothing else to say about the main board. I will see you guys in the games. Alright, we have found our match. So let's go ahead and get in here. Maybe resolve some Karn the Great Creators against our opponent. That would be pretty cool. Speaking of resolving Karns, I mean, this hand is very well set up to do just that, but we have no ramp. And we're on the draw? I don't know. I just don't think a turn 4 Karn is doing anything, so we'll mulligan. And this hand is not that terribly much better. We haven't explosives to buy time, although we might honestly just be putting that one on the bottom. We do have access to Titan on turn, what is that, 5 here, I think? Close to turn 5 Titan. We could draw a Azusa or a Dryad, and this hand becomes a lot better. I think we definitely keep this. And I do think the card we bottom is the explosives. We probably need all of our lands here, as our growth chambers are giving us the double green to activate Garenbrig, so I suppose we could ship the Hanweir, but the Hanweir is going to be an untapped source for actually casting a Dryad or an Azusa on time, or at least when we want to. We see a turn 1 Gravecrawler, which is not one that I expected. We'll play out this Garenbrig, of course setting up to cast this Grazer this upcoming turn, and we'll see how this goes. I suppose we could be playing against zombies or some kind of Aristocrats style deck. Definitely zombies. We see Undead Augur coming into play here. The 2-mana 2/2 zombie that whenever it or another zombie our opponent controls dies, they get to draw a card and lose 1 life. Very good for grinding. Maybe not the best against Amulet, but I mean, at least we can't just mow their board and run them completely out of resources by doing just that. So there's that. And let's just throw a Garenbrig out here and pass it back. Save our untapped source for when we might use it. And here we can just lead Garenbrig into Hanweir and have a Titan in 2 turns, so that's probably going to be the play. We're going to go ahead and absorb our 2 points of damage here with our Grazer. We might have to be concerned about Ashiok from the sideboard from our opponent. And we see that they are playing white as well. So this could be an Aristocrats-style zombie deck. Definitely Aristocrats when we see a card like Bloodghast on the battlefield. So that one is not even a zombie. So this is going to be some kind of graveyard-focused strategy, perhaps. I could see maybe Rally the Ancestors being an option in white for our opponents, but we'll have to see exactly what they do bring to the table here. Let's go ahead and get this Garenbrig out, I suppose, and a Growth Chamber, and this way we'll have guaranteed Titan mana as long as our opponent doesn't Ghost Quarter us and kill our Dryad, so if they only do one of those things, then we'll still be able to cast Titan this upcoming turn, so that Dryad was a fantastic draw. Definitely not attacking with Grazer, of course. We'll just see what our opponent can muster here. They can draw a couple cards by sacrificing things to Visceraseer. Visceraseer? I'm pretty sure the word is Viscera. I've always struggled with that one. My first instinct is to say Viscera, which doesn't really make any sense, but right, let's just yield to these abilities here. We're not doing anything. Suppose if our opponent casts an Inquisition... Nah, we're not doing anything. Let's actually just yield through the turn here. If they Inquisition us, then we'll just untap and slam Primeval Titan, so... Not really worried about that. We just have to hope our opponent doesn't just kill us here. They could have a Path to Exile. I don't know if I expect that out of our opponent's main board, since they are playing a deck that needs a high density of business spells. We'll see. Of course, they're getting their Sign in Blood going on here with their Gravecrawler and Undead Augur and Visceraseer kind of engine. Our opponent's just got all the creatures in play, so not really worried about it. They're attacking with Bloodghast, which is intriguing. I don't think I would have blocked with the Dryad. I probably would have blocked with the Grazer, but okay. Well, it doesn't matter here. We're just gonna, do the Titan thing, so let's play that bad boy. And we'll get a Crumbling Vestige and a Valakut, I do believe. We'll float a red with our Crumbling Vestige, and we'll play Hanweir Battlements and Haste. I don't think there's a point in playing around Path to Exile here, so Valakut and Crumbling Vestige will yield to this one. I suppose if we had played the Battlements first, then we could have gotten 2 Valakut triggers here. I didn't think about that sequencing. Hopefully it will be unimportant. And let's send this Valakut trigger at the Visceraseer, perhaps? That seems fine. Let's just try to get our opponent's game pieces off the table. Of course, with the new update, you can no longer auto-yes to your Valakut triggers, which is very annoying in my opinion, but we will deal with it. And yeah, that's the game. Okay, well, that was pretty simple. This doesn't really seem like a matchup for Karn. I mean, Karn can go and get Tormod's Crypt, but that's pretty, niche. I suppose a Wormcoil Engine could be good against our opponent, but of course they can always just sacrifice their creature to a Viscera Seer or something and prevent us from gaining the life of our Wormcoil either attacking or blocking, since it never has a creature to do damage to. So, yeah, I'm not really a big fan of Karn here, so let's drop that one. Obviously, we want the explosives. I think we'll most likely want Beast Withins to play around our opponent's potential Ashioks. We'll bring in the Tormod's Crypt, perhaps. I don't know, Tormod's Crypt seems like a little too mild of an effect. We did see white from our opponent, so our opponent could very likely be playing Rally the Ancestors to get a bunch of creatures back from their graveyard, in which case the Crypt would be nice to have access to, but I don't think it's really necessary. And we could bring in Dismember. If our opponent is playing Rally the Ancestors, then Dismember is probably not the best move, but otherwise Dismember could be good in killing their Augur before they can draw a bunch of cards with it, or killing their Viscera Seer so that they can't use it as a sack outlet. I don't know, though. I'm not convinced that that's going to be particularly useful here. I suppose we're just bringing in Sky Sovereign, as that's another way to kind of dominate the battlefield here. And here we can cut a Summoner's Pact, perhaps. I think we can rely on Turn Timber as top decks in the late game towards Primeval Titan. So that's probably fine. We don't want to get punked out with Ashiok, and we can side out Cavernous Holes as well, and I think that's pretty clean. Sure. We may not want to have the Sky Sovereign in our deck, now I'm thinking about it, but we'll see. Sky Sovereign's just too good a card to not have access to, you see what I'm saying? I mean, this hand looks good to me. We got double green for activating Garenbrig, we got some explosives to slow our opponent down, and we have the best card in the deck, Arboreal Grazer. So, not concerned about this hand at all. I don't know if our opponent can afford to play effects like Ghost Quarter or Field of Ruin in their deck. They might just be so mana pip hungry, as the Undead Augur, for example, is double black, and Bloodghast, if they want to hardcast that one, is also double black, so they may not be able to afford to play things like Ghost Quarter, but we'll see. Crumbling Vestige was amazing. That's a great one to have access to here. This lets us start ramping early and fast. And of course, we'll be putting in a bounce land to pick up the Crumbling Vestige, so we have an avenue to cast a 3-drop this upcoming turn if we draw it. Let's put in the Growth Chamber. Like I said, I am a little worried about these Ghost Quarter type effects, but not so worried that I'm going to play around them. I do think it's unlikely our opponent has them. Let's play 2 more 1-drops, opponent. Oof, not that 1-drop. Not that one. Careful what you wish for. Well, there goes our Titan. And we sideboarded out 1 Summoner's Pact, so maybe that was incorrect. We'll see. Dryad. So we did draw the 3-drop to reward picking up Crumbling Vestige and playing into Ghost Quarter here, so that's actually pretty fantastic, all things considered. Here he goes. Let's get that 2/4 body right into play, and we'll play out the Garenbrig, Rot Farm. If we keep our Dryad in play and top deck a Titan, then playing the Rot Farm means that we'll be able to cast a Titan this upcoming turn just by playing Garenbrig. That requires us to both top deck a Titan and keep our Dryad in play, but I think it's worth playing towards it, so that'll be the move. Of course, we're yielding through this turn. We have these 2 explosives here ready to blow out our opponent's battlefield once they start playing, actual things. Geralf's Messenger is not really the scariest thing in the world to me. I suppose they could be on a mono-black Devotion type strategy. That's not something I had considered, but I mean, when you see Geralf's Messenger, you should immediately be thinking of 2 things. The first one that comes to my mind is mono-black Devotion, specifically because of the fact that Geralf's Messenger was originally played in those mono-black Devotion type strategies. Here we're just transmuting for Summoner's Pact, of course, and playing out some land drops and passing it back. But the other thing that you should be thinking about when you see Geralf's Messenger is Yawgmoth, as that deck plays Geralf's Messenger to just combo kill / drain life your opponent to death, so there's that. Do we play the Vestige? I suppose that we do. It helps us for purposes of Valakut triggering, so we'll just float a green. Do we play out explosives on one? I don't see why not. Sure, let's just do it. We have a second explosives anyways, so... And I think the way that we probably die here is by our opponent's Visceraseer just killing us. I don't plan on blocking with this Dryad, in all honesty. I don't think that we want to risk losing it to like a Disfigure or something crazy like that. So let's just go ahead and swing with it. Get our 2 points of damage in. I'm not sure that it changes the Valakut clock at all. Our opponent was already below 18, so that's generally the life total that matters. Our opponent is not really combo killing us here, as they have already put a +1/+1 counter on their messenger, so... Also, it's worth noting that had we left Dryad up to block this guy, we actually wouldn't have been able to profitably block it. It would have killed our Dryad, so... Definitely was probably... Oh, I guess our opponent could have sacrificed their messenger... Oh, interest tap. So, no, they couldn't have blown out our attack by blocking. Kind of lucked into that, but... You know what? I'll take what I can get. And speaking of taking what I can get, let's just, save ourselves the 4 points of damage here. I suppose we could be playing into a Liliana of the Veil, but... Like, okay. Doomed Traveler. That's a 1-drop. Okay. Things are looking good. Our opponent could have Path to Exile. That's about the only consideration. And we have a bounce land to go along with our Dryad. So here we can pact for Titan and play it and just get double Valakut. And mow our opponent's board, or just do a bunch of damage to them, and then if they have a path, they basically have to path the Dryad, leaving our Titan in play. It's probably the best line. If only this Growth Chamber were a Gruul Turf, then we could get Field of the Dead here, Valakut Field of the Dead, and be able to set up our Titan so it doesn't die to Liliana of the Veil. But regardless, we're obviously going for Titan here. And we'll have to figure out what we're doing with it. We actually can haste here if we got a Hanweir, since we can float red with our Crumbling Vestige. So it's probably worth it to get Valakut Hanweir and then play Growth Chamber to pick up the Hanweir and then play the Hanweir for turn. So that's what I'm going to do. This requires our opponent to have 2 paths. And we get to mow their board because they will have to path the Titan, so... Valakut and Hanweir. Let's send the Valakut triggers at their creatures, just to ensure that we're facing a clean board here. Stacked these a little incorrectly. I should have stacked it at the Visceraseer first, last, I mean. So point at the Geralt's Messenger and then the Visceraseer. They do have a removal spell to interact with our Dryad. That's a little unfortunate because we actually won't have a second land drop to haste our Titan, so... let's float the mana here so we can pop explosives. And yeah, that'll be fine. Oh, we're not going to be able to pop explosives either. Yeah, well, I don't see a point in throwing out this Growth Chamber. I guess we could play Growth Chamber and pick up something so that we can transmute Tolaria West. So I guess that's a legitimate consideration. So let's just pick up the Crumbling Vestige, I suppose. And we'll pass it back. Well, if I can hit the OK button. Alright. Well, yeah, now our opponent has to deal with the onboard Titan. And they're going a-diggin' here with their Scries. Makes sense. Most certainly. Another Geralt's Messenger. Not really scaring me at the moment. In fact, I think if our opponent... our opponent would have to have another Dismember and an untapped land to survive this upcoming turn, I'm pretty sure, so... Let's see. We will pay like this. And we have 6, including the Vestige for turn, so we should be able to transmute for and play a Dryad in our second main phase. So yeah, or we could just have another Titan. That's cool too. Let's see, so if we attack and get... We'd have to get Bounce Land in Tolari West, pick up the Tolari West, and we wouldn't even have any triggers for our Valakut. It probably is better to just get another Titan into play right now, so that's what I'm going to do. I don't think that our opponent can realistically beat that anyways, so... We'll see, though. We will see what our opponent can manage. Obviously, we're setting up Field of Dead here. It's probably... Oh, and our opponent just concedes. Okay, well... As I have said in the past, that was a little too easy, but, you know, it's cool, it's cool. I will take it. No complaining here. Not really a great showing for Karn the Great Creator, as we didn't play it in Game 1 and then just kind of sided it out. But you know what? That's not the strength of Karn, and if we play against a mid-range deck or a control deck where having the additional threats will be important, then Karn might shine there. And that's all I have to say about it. So, yeah, if you liked this video, if you got any enjoyment or entertainment or information from this video, then leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm here consistently, even when it's an awkward time for me to record as it is now. I still want to get this content out for you. And yeah, if that's something that you're into, then show your support. And that's all I have to say about it. This is Red Face Menace, signing off.